Max, so we're going to talk GAA because league finals, football finals were on over the weekend, of course. So in Division 1 we had Mayo beating Galway by 14 points to 11. Dublin in the Division 2 final, 4 goals against Derry, 4-6 to Derry's 11 points. In Division 3 it was Fermanagh 1-7, Cavan 16 points, comfortable winners. And then poignant scenes after Sligo's 2-10 to 14 points win against Wicklow. The win very much dedicated to Red Oak Murphy, the Curry and Sligo player who had passed away, of course, on April 1st last year. To discuss, we are joined by Colm Boyle, 4-time All-Star with Mayo. You're very welcome.
Joe, how are you?
So any sense that Mayo might be celebrating a league win quickly dealt a blow, because of course in 5-6 days they're taking on Roscommon at Croke Park, and you know, it's an amazing situation. Even I was listening to commentary, I didn't get to see the game live, but there was talk in the last 10 minutes with a league final on the line about whether or not Kevin McStay would make substitutions with next Sunday in mind. But this is the world that we're living in. They got it done in the end. What would you say about the game?
Not a classic, Joe, by any stretch of the imagination. Very, very cagey. I was at the game and both teams kind of mirrored each other's style. Lots of bodies behind the ball, lots of phases where there was long bouts of possession for each team, and almost during them bouts of possession there was almost silence in the crowd. So there was very little flow to the game during the stages of it, and I think Mayo did just about enough. Although if you're Galway, you have to look at them 5-goal chance and you think if one of those goes in, it looks like it's a very different game, you know. And I think that's what Pádraig Joyce be most frustrated. I think we've frustrated a couple of things that they gave Mayo a bit of a start. You know, Mayo go 6-1 up. Galway are very edgy in that 15-16 minute period. They turn over the ball very easily. I think Mayo actually turned them over 7 out of their first 8 attacks. Galway attacks. The only exception is Sean Kelly's fisted score, which was actually a goal chance, John Maher. It was Galway's first goal chance by John Maher, which Colin Reap saved. But after that, then, you know, Galway settled into the game an awful lot more. And, you know, Mayo, what was working for them in the first 15-16 minutes, Galway got on top of that. And Galway were probably finished the half, I would say, the better team, even though Mayo go 8-5 up. So look, it probably comes down to the goal chances. Very fine margins in the game, but I think the goal chances, that's what Pádraig Joyce will be looking back at today.
Well, if you said to Mayo before throwing you're going to score 4 points from play today,
yeah,
they wouldn't have been thrilled. It was that kind of an afternoon.
It was, and you know, another aspect I think Pádraig Joyce will look at is, you know, Mayo were going nowhere in a lot of them attacks, and just a soft foul by a Galway back, and it just led to Mayo getting a free and almost bailing them out of jail to a certain aspect. I think possibly the referee gave a couple of handy ones, I would say, as well, you know, which didn't help the cause for Galway for sure. But yeah, they'll be looking at them aspects. I think it was very noticeable that Mayo's style of play during the league was all about kicking the ball, moving the ball at pace. But there was very little of that yesterday. It was pre-planned that they were hanging on to that ball. Even the runs inside weren't being made. They were holding the ball. The boys on the ball weren't looking up to kick it, really. So it was very structured, very controlled, and they were just trying to get shooters on the ball, which wasn't really happening. I think if you look at it, like Ryan O'Donoghue, James Carr, Aidan O'Shea, I think they had only 2 shots in play between the three of them, and out of the half-forward line, only Jordan Flynn gets a shot away. So I think going forward for Mayo, you know, teams looking at that the next day will think, well, how do you frustrate Mayo? You do what Galway did, you drop off their kick out, you let them build slow attacks, and you don't foul them, you know. And I think that's what Mayo will be looking at going forward.
Yes, how do we break down numbers, which is difficult at the best of times, but I mean, if you were to say to anybody, what do Mayo want? They want end-to-end, they want chaos, they want intensity, they want a high-tempo game. Don't give it to them. It's that simple. On the Mayo goalkeeper, Colin Reap, he's 26 years of age, so he made 3, if not 4, brilliant saves. You would know him, I presume, Colin?
Yeah, he was in the panel for the last year or two while I was there. He was kind of almost an understudy initially to David Clarke and Robbie Heaney came in, and then obviously David Clarke retires, Rory Byrne comes in, and he's still kind of floating around as third choice keeper. So between one thing or another, he's got his chance. Earlier on in the league, he was predominantly an outfield player during his underage career. I think he won All-Ireland 21 as an outfield player for Mayo, coming on as a forward, a full forward. So He's one of these players that's been converted through his club, Knockmore, won a couple of county titles with them in goal, and he's developed on, and in fairness to him, had a really, really good game. There was that controversial moment, of course, with Johnny Heaney bearing down goal in the first half. But besides that, his place kicking was extremely important yesterday. I was surprised Galway didn't put more pressure on his kickouts. Just the fact that it's his first really big game in Croke Park, just even for a few push up, put him under pressure, test him out, see what he's like, and try and win the ball up high. But they pretty much set off for the majority of the Mayo kickouts, didn't put him under pressure. But in fairness to Reap, he was striking the ball really well from play. I think he had three shots from four efforts, which was vital in a game where Mayo were struggling to get scores.
If people didn't see the Johnny Heaney incident, it's one of these moments that happens in numerous sports, right back to the days of Schumacher, where there's a ball between goalkeeper and player, and Heaney got there first, had a stab at it. It was a really good effort on goal. It would have been a beautiful goal. And then he's taken out of it, and Reap, the Mayo goalkeeper, would argue, well, look, momentum, and he's running at me and I'm running at him, and it's just one of those incidents. Pork Joyce was adamant it should have been some kind of card and some kind of free. What would you say?
You're right about that, Joe, and the fact that if it did go in, it would have been a super goal from Healy, because we were in the stand, and if that just goes past the post by a foot, that would have been a cracking goal on his behalf. I think you're right to a certain extent, and people say this is me talking with my Mayo hat on me, but I think the collision happens, and there's nothing either player can do to avoid the collision. I think what happens after that is Colin Reap almost reflexes and kicks and sticks out his leg after the initial contact has been made, which makes it look like a trip or a takedown to a certain extent. So I think the referee got it just about right. I think what was interesting in it is how long he actually took. He didn't actually signal anything for a very, very long time. I think Johnny Heaney might have been down for maybe a minute or 90 seconds. He's gone in and spoken to his umpires, and then he gives a free in, which was quite unusual. But I think in the grand scheme of things, he just about got it right. But a brilliant day for Colin Reap, for sure.
So, Galway have a few more weeks to play with in their preparation. They are All-Ireland finalists. Who's going to go further in this year's championship, Galway or Mayo?
Oh, God. If Mayo beat Roscommon on Sunday, which is another task in itself, they're meeting again in 2 or 3 weeks in Salt Hill. So, if Mayo and Galway played each other 10 times, it could be a winner every different time. You know, it could be 5-all. There's very little to choose between the teams. And I said to you a few weeks ago, Joe, we could be seeing this further on down the line, a semi-final or a final between these two teams. So I think if you're Galway, you look at where they can improve, obviously finishing their goal chances number one, but the likes of McDade maybe coming back, Ian Burke possibly coming back into that team as well. It's so hard to call, Joe. It's so hard. There's nothing between these two teams. I think they're both right in the mix. I think that's one thing for sure. Shane
Walsh, it was a talking point last night. I saw in the highlights. And I mean, this is a level of ability I can't even relate to. So he is taking frees from outside the 45, outside the 50 with his quote-unquote weaker left foot off the ground, and then in the same match out of his hands, and then with his right foot. And they were debating whether, should he not be doing them all off his right foot, or what's the thinking, or maybe in certain instances he's trying to ride the wind, and that's the thinking of going left foot or right foot. In Croke Park, because I couldn't figure out why he's doing it out of the hands left foot and off the ground left foot. The grass is I presume cut so finely that there's no grain into you or grain with you. Like a golfer with the lie might affect whether they might go hands or off the ground. Basically, I can't work out as to why he's doing what he's doing, and I'm searching around for any kind of theory here.
Yeah, you're probably asking the wrong man, Joe.
I know. I didn't think it was in your wheelhouse. Sorry.
Yeah, I wouldn't be an expert on kicking on the ground now, but the Walsh one is interesting. Has there been a player ever that's been doing what he's doing, kicking from the ground as much from both feet? I don't think so. I think what was crucial for Walsh is that he missed a couple in the second half, which were probably easier than the ones in the first half, because there was a bit of a breeze behind him in the second half, so you would have fancied him for a few more there, so he probably will be disappointed. But you could see with Walsh yesterday, the moments of brilliance weren't there, but I don't think he's anywhere near full tilt just yet. I think there's a lot more to come from him, from a fitness point of view, from a sharpness point of view. The moments of magic, I think he too yesterday, but overall he was curtailed fairly well, I would say.
Dublin Derry then. Dublin scored 4 goals, probably could have had 5 or 6. A lot of people have pinpointed Conor Glass going off injured in the second half as decisive and Derry were also missing Chrissy McCaig, and it's been well documented, even by Rory Gallagher himself, that they don't have a deep squad. They are threadbare, and they need everybody fit. So that would be worrying if you're a Derry fan looking at a fairly arduous championship season ahead. But a bigger picture, maybe it's because it was sunny as well. It really just copper-fastened that sense that there is league football not in Croke Park, and then there is Croke Park football. And Dublin exposed Derry quite badly.
Yeah, it did. From a Dublin point of view, encouraging that, you know, they were going for so many goals, you know what I mean? Almost to a fault, you know, they probably overplayed one or two of them, but, you know, it seems to have learned from that up in Celtic Park, what happened with Kilkenny goal chance. Now they just seem to be ruthless. I think there's a couple of things in that. I think they know now that they need to be going for these goal chances, that they mightn't be hitting 19, 20 points from play, so they need to go for these goal chances. But overall, Joe, I thought it was a really, really poor game.
Right.
Really, really poor game. Very low standard game. Like Dublin in the first half, four scores from 10 shots. Like, you know, that's almost unheard of from them.
They were bad. I know shot selection was criticised. I thought they were just more bad kicks than from like impossible places.
Yeah, they were. It was just poor. Like, there was a tricky breeze. I think all four teams struggled a tiny bit kicking into the hill yesterday. There was a breeze coming in there and going down to the canal end. I think all four teams struggled, but I think Dublin, some of their passing in the first half, like they were trying to kick the ball a lot more. I think that was evident. They were trying to kick it before the Derry defenders could get back in, but a lot of wayward passing, a lot of poor shooting. And what would have been interesting to me yesterday, if Derry had got that goal before half-time, Niall Loughlin has a great goal chance. It's very similar to the goal he gets in the Ulster final last year, where he sprints out to the wing, doubles back inside, cuts back inside, and the ball gets floated over Michael Fitzsimon's head. It's a great smother by David Hanlon, but if that ball goes in the back of the net, Derry are actually 5 up going in at half-time. You know, then they come out at half-time, Cillian O'Gara gets the goal, and Conor Glass goes off in the very next play. And really, there's only one winner after that, Joe, but Dublin still had to work for it. It took them about maybe 15, 20 minutes to break Derry down. But what you said about Derry, I think, is right. You know, I was very unsure about them before yesterday, and I'm looking at them, and you're talking about squad, and you're going into a condensed championship and more games. You know, I just don't think, when you think about last year, they got to a semi-final against Galway, but they only scored 1-6 in that semi-final. They only hit 10 points in Croker yesterday. I don't think they've the system that's going to allow them to get the scores, and I don't think they've the players that's going to get the scores in the big games later on in the summer in Croke Park. And I think that's been very evident in the last two times they played in Croke Park. It's all good and well doing it on provincial grounds, but when you get into the big open spaces, you know, you're probably it's an awful lot harder. And obviously, when you lose players like Colin Glass, it's not going to happen. You need Shane McGuigan to be shooting the lights out, you know, and he was held fairly well yesterday, bar a 5-minute spell really before half-time where he hit 2 in a row. But yeah, for Derry, you'd have to have concerns. And with the Glass injury, it didn't look good, a hamstring right at the start of the second half. So, you know, what kind of long-term effects that'll have on them, you know. I think from an Ulster point of view, if you're looking at Ireland contenders, I think Tyrone are probably back in the mix. I'd have them ahead of Derry at the minute for sure going forward. Okay.
And that Croke Park point, because you would have experienced all manner of provincial grounds, and you would have experienced heavy provincial pitches, and then obviously hard ground in Croke Park. Like the styles you can implement, the tactics, and the type of player, I mean, akin to horses on heavy ground and hard ground, the type of players who profit. Like it is night and day, I would presume, Colm. It certainly looks that way.
It is for sure. And look, there's certain players in that Derry team that will favour, obviously, the likes of Brendan Rodgers and obviously McGuigan, who would like the space. But if you're trying to keep a tight-knit defence, trying to keep things tight, you know, get numbers back, it's fine getting numbers back. But then when you have to try and break out every single time you have the ball, where your whole team has to break out together, that takes it out as time goes on. And it's been very noticeable, actually, even if you go back to the semi-final last year against Galway, it's in the last 20 minutes they faded against Galway. Galway, you know, eventually broke them down, got out in front, and when Derry go behind in games, they seem to struggle. And it was noticeable last year in the semi-final. They had to come out and play against Galway. They left the spaces in behind. Cormac got the goal. And again yesterday, once they had to come out and kind of attack Dublin and go at them, the spaces are left behind and Dublin just picked them off.
This Dublin, we're going to need goals because we're not as ahead of the pack as we used to be. Mindset is very interesting, and I dare say you're correct. That'd be my read of it too. The slippage in their standards of kicking, of execution, of skill set, I find that odd. Like, I would think, these guys were able to kick a ball well a couple of years ago. They should still be able to. But we are seeing a slippage. There's no doubt.
And do you know what, Joe? It could be just a pure confidence thing as well. You know what I mean? And I know that might sound mad to say from so many players that's been there and done that, but there's some of the play yesterday was average, to say that, to put it mildly, it was poor mistakes, very poor turnovers. Balls been kicked in that weren't really on, and the execution itself was poor. But look, it wasn't all negative. If I'm looking at Dublin and looking at them going forward, obviously, the players coming back, we talk about, you still have to have concerns that McCaffrey hasn't played much, Mannion hasn't played much. Are they going to be live 70-minute options in the championship? That's a big concern if you're a Dublin supporter. Another thing I was going to think about yesterday was what's happened with Brian Howard. Like, how is he not pushed on over the last year or two? I know he's had a couple of injuries, but like, Howard really should be in there with Fintan and OCallaghan leading this team out. You know what I mean? And for some reason, he's on the bench yesterday. I don't know, did he get on or play much game time towards the end, but he hasn't played a whole pile through the league. And it's an interesting one when Dublin are struggling. You think he'd be in there kind of leading it out with Fintan and OCallaghan trying to pull it through it. But yeah, look at Dublin, they're still in the mix, absolutely. We've this conversation every week, Joe, every second week. They're absolutely still in the mix, but there's huge question marks over them for sure.
All of us are on Cluxton watch. So now that you've probably had a bit of time to think about it, is he going into the team? Do you suspect? Does he make them a better team? Do we know? What is your sense of the situation?
Are you taking David O'Hanlon out at the minute? No, you know what I mean? And that's my reading it. Okay, I looked at it this morning. Out of the 18 kickouts, he had Derry won 6, which, on a Derry team that don't generally push high on kickouts, that probably is a fair amount to be losing, but that's not all down to him, obviously. Yeah. He makes that great save just before halftime, like I said, which keeps Dublin in the game, really. So my read on it is, I don't know. When you talk to when you listen to the ex-Dublin players like Paul Flynn and Paddy Andrews saying it's the right decision, you probably have to edge with them and just the influence he's going to have in the dressing room itself. So look, time will tell. I think for David O'Hanlon, it's just the interest to see how he handles this goes on, because the pressure is going to be building all the time. It's grander in the league, but now there's going to be more and more talking about people are going to be expecting him now to play in the championship. So time will tell.
Well, I think as well, what's difficult for him, and it's the case for keepers generally because their mistakes are highlighted, but he, on the back of his mind, he must be thinking, am I one bad mistake away from Cluxton in
100%.
here? That's a horrible 100%. High wire act.
Yeah, it is a high ball coming in. You're thinking, if this goes wrong here, I could be sitting on the sideline. And that the reality is that's the position David O'Hanlon's in. But look I'm sure Dessie Farrell didn't take this lightly. I'm sure he didn't take it lightly, and I'm sure with Cluxton, training with Cluxton can probably only make him better. Even though he's under this pressure now because he is there. So it's going to be hugely interesting to see how does this work out. Is Cluxton going to force his way in? And if he does, what kind of Stephen Cluxton is it? A 41-year-old Stephen Cluxton can't be the same as the player who dominated GAA, for the 10 years previous before he retired. I just simply don't think he can be. So it'll be hugely interesting, and it could be one of the most interesting parts of the championship.
Because I think elder statesmen need competition for places to stay sharp. I think when you're a young lad in there, actually having a bit of space to flourish is important. And I just have images of O'Hanlon arriving 2 hours early for training, and he arrives, and who's fecking there in the goal?
Yeah,
already.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, give me some breathing room here. So look, championship is here. London Sligo, Ruislip on Saturday. We have New York Leitrim Gaelic Grounds. We have Ulster preliminary round, Armagh Antrim Athletic Grounds, and we have Connacht quarter-final, Mayo or Scommon on the Sunday at 4:00. So we are up and running. We'll chat to you, I suspect, over the coming weeks. Colin, thanks a mil.
Brilliant, Joe. Thanks a million.
Cheers. Colm Boyle with us there, 4-time All-Star with Mayo. And Gaelic Football on Off the Ball is in partnership with AIB, proud sponsors of the Football Hurling Camogie All-Ireland Club Championships. You can check out #TheToughest for more.